Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. And I'd like to call to order our Middlesex County Council meeting for Tuesday, May the 9th. And for anyone that's watching this movie, might feel like a movie at times. This meeting, either live or back at your convenience, let me tell you what a great sight I am looking at. Our gallery is full, and it really is a great day in Middlesex County, and it's so good to see people in our gallery today. So I'd like to begin with our land acknowledgement, and we acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenapewauk peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames First Nation, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We acknowledge that the treaties that are specific to this area, Treaty 2, the McKee Purchase, Treaty 3, Between the Lakes Purchase, Treaty 6, London Township Purchase, Treaty 21, Longwoods Purchase, and Treaty 29, Huron Tract Purchase. We value the significant contributions both in the past and the present of local and regional First Nations of Turtle Island. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. So thank you for joining us today as we gather to celebrate the long-term service and unwavering commitment of our community emergency response volunteers. These individuals stand as a shining example of what can be achieved when community members come together for the common good. Since its inception in 2007, Serve Middlesex has made a significant impact on the safety and security of our communities. With volunteers operating at the grassroots level, our county has become more resilient in the face of emergencies, be they floods, severe storms, or other unexpected hazards. As we all know, it is the dedication and hard work of our volunteers that make Serve Middlesex a success. With comprehensive training in emergency and disaster response first aid and reception center operations, our volunteers are well prepared to assist their fellow citizens when disaster strikes. Their commitment has not gone unnoticed. The Serve Middlesex team has demonstrated the can-do spirit and compassion that Ontarians are known for, as evidenced by their tireless efforts during the H1N1 outbreak in 2009, or when they provided assistance at numerous community events, including a visit of the Stanley Cup to Strathroy, Olympic medalist Scott and Tessa's homecoming in Ilderton, and I can't not mention Lucan's celebration of Craft Hockeyville. Most recently, their service was invaluable during the COVID-19 pandemic, providing support and a welcoming presence at vaccination clinics throughout the county. And I have to speak personally to that because I had the honor and privilege of being able to volunteer alongside of you at the vaccine clinics and at the main clinic in Mount Bridges. And it really was a testimony to your commitment to community. And, you know, you came to every shift with a smile on your face. There were so many people that came through those doors that were perhaps uneasy about going through the vaccination process. And of course, all the questions surrounding COVID. And you greeted them with smiles, comfort, and compassion. And you represented our county at a level that I don't think any of us can say that we've done. So thank you so much for your commitment during that time. Today, we honor the long-term service of these exceptional individuals who have devoted their time and energy to making Middlesex County a safe place for all. Their contributions have undoubtedly brought comfort to residents and made a lasting difference in our communities. As the Warden of Middlesex County, I am immensely grateful for your service and proud to stand alongside you in your commitment to community safety. To our Serve Middlesex volunteers, I extend my heartfelt thanks and admiration for your selflessness and dedication. May we continue to work together to build a stronger, safer, and more resilient Middlesex County for generations to come. Thank you very much for your service. So we do have a presentation to make, and Bettina is going to call you down, and we'll be presenting you with a token of our appreciation. But I do want to take a moment also to acknowledge Bettina, John, and Chris. It's under Chris's department that Serve is managed, and without the dedication of Bettina and John, I don't think our volunteers would be up to the caliber that they are. You train them well, and it is just as much your commitment that the success that we see in this program. Hey, now to the fun stuff, right? Okay, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I would ask for a mover and a seconder so that the agenda in front of us be adopted. Councillor Grantham and Councillor McGuire. All in favor? And that's carried. We have one set of minutes in front of us for April 11th, and I trust that you've all been able to review them. If nothing has to be amended, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those as presented and that the recommendations made by the Committee of the Whole be adopted. Councillor Smybert and Councillor Clark. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, on to new business. The first report in front of us is a report from Cindy, and it's actually an exciting transportation update and on our transportation routes that we've got, and there's going to be some changes. And so, Cindy, I would hand it over to you at this time.
Thanks, and through the warden, I'm happy to be presenting today on an update on the Community Transportation Project, Middlesex County Connect. So Kara and Anum, our new project manager, and she's located right there, have worked really hard to prepare this presentation today. Oh, great. And I'm just going to keep going next when Greg is going to change the slides for me. So the county officially launched the service on September 21st, 2020. So yes, right in the middle of COVID-19. The program is 100% funded by the Government of Ontario and transit fares under the Community Transportation Grant. The program was initially funded until March 2023, but since has been extended until March 2025. You will remember at the last council meeting, IBI actually came and did a presentation. So you're going to hear some of the same stuff that I'm going to talk about, but based on the recommendations of IBI. Next. The Community Transportation Program supports the county's strategic plan under cultivating community vitality. Next. This presentation will give an update on the current service, and I will also talk about some changes we are recommending today. At the last council meeting, as I talked about, IBI Group came and they did an entire transportation needs assessment across the county. They talked about the current service and they talked about a short-term service design. Today, I won't be talking about the long-term. I'll be coming back to council at a future time to talk about IBI's long-term transit. Next. So this program, as I mentioned, will be in place now until March of 2025. So we still have time to adjust and refine and get our residents to take our transit service. We want to make sure that the community understands transit and what it's all about and the benefits of transit in Middlesex County. And just so you know, we're not the only community that's actually looking at their current transit and making some tweaks and refinements. In fact, I actually got an email yesterday from somebody interested in working with IBI as well, because they've seen the work that we've been doing. Next. Next. So I'm just going to have a couple slides to talk about the current route, and then I'm going to jump forward and then we're going to talk about some changes that we're proposing. So the current Route 1 runs from Woodstock to Thorndale to London from Monday to Friday. The good news is that we've seen an increase in ridership in the last year, but that's mostly coming from Woodstock and Ingersoll. We heard at the IBI group that there's been very minimal boardings coming from Tempsford and Thorndale. And if you look at the chart, it actually shows the ridership by stops. And you can also see, and I'm going to point to Bill because you're going to see the hockey stick that's kind of going on there. I know backwards hockey stick maybe, but it's showing that we are seeing a trend upwards, which is good news for us. Next. The second route that we have in place goes from Dorchester to London, and it also runs from Monday to Friday. The ridership again has started to increase in this route as well. And that one's kind of a straight upwards chart if you look on the right-hand side. Again, we actually show the ridership by the stops and where they're going. Next. The third route that we had was only a Saturday route and it was on demand. So it was very limited in how long it ran for in the time. We gave it a try. We wanted to see what on-demand and how it would work in the community. And we did a couple things, like at Christmas, we did just routes to grocery stores and shopping. We also did the Festival of Lights one time. We didn't get a lot of uptake, so we decided to cancel this at the current moment. But I do want to point out that on-demand is something that I know myself, our CAO, is still interested in exploring. And as we go forward in the next few years, if there is opportunity or options to add a little bit of on-demand, we can look at that as well. Next. So challenges. So obviously the biggest one was COVID-19. So it was really hard to launch a service. And if you wonder why we had to launch, we had no choice. We had to get the service up and running. And we weren't the only one. There was lots of other communities that got the community transportation grant that kind of got up and going the same time that we did. So as you can imagine, everybody had to wear masks. We weren't actually allowed to advertise. At some points, we weren't even allowed to have individuals go on the bus. So that did have some challenges. However, I would say that we left the routes in place for a period of time just to make sure that we gave a chance to the communities to try the transit. Because as I'm going to talk about some changes, and I do want to make sure that we did offer that period of time so individuals could use the transit if they wanted to use it. Next. So some opportunities, and that's why I'm here today. I'm very excited about these. Today, we do have a number of opportunities, but the bigger ones are we want to make changes, and they're going to be changes based on our experience, what we've learned to date. And we're also going to leverage the recommendations that we had from the IBI group that Council heard at last meeting. And we also are looking at the growth in our community. And I know you heard some people that were here this morning heard a little bit of the growth that's going on across the county, but some of the area we've seen growth is in Lucan, Biddulph, and of course, Middlesex Centre. So we'll be talking about that as we go forward. Not to say there's lots of growth in lots of other areas in the county as well, but this area will focus more on those ones today. Next. Next. So one of the changes that we're proposing is looking at Route 1, and we want to flip it. And this one now will be a route that goes from Lucan to Ilderton to Arva to London. In the county, as I indicated, we've seen lots of growth in these communities. By reaching out these communities, we're actually working towards what the province is looking for, is really exploring transit. They've asked us to look at pilots. They've asked us to reconsider our routes, trying to get more individuals to use transit. So the province has been very on board when we recommended these changes to them. Next. This slide actually shows the stops. I'm going to flip to the next one because it actually shows the times and the stops. And I do want to say a big thank you because a NUM has been out to the municipalities of Lucan, Biddulph and Middlesex Centre and to Dorchester to talk about these stops, where to place them, working with your staff. They've been absolutely wonderful in supporting Middlesex County. So we do appreciate that. And it's really important to think about where the stops go. And also, you're just going to see a few slides, but I can tell you it took hours of thinking around the times, where we're going, what's the purpose of our transit. And we also looked at what other routes are in place. So we have Perth Connect, which kind of goes from Masonville into Stratford. And we also have Huron Shores. So we really did look at those routes and the timing of them. And we really tried to make sure this new change complements what they had to offer. So this one here shows the new route, which is again, Lucan, Ilderton, Arva to London. And you can see we're going multiple times during the day, back and forth. If you see a couple of those boxes that have the X, that means these are a little bit more of a speed route. So they go from London automatically to Lucan, but you can get on in London and you can go to Lucan in that instance. So if you look at the times, so the first one starts at, my glasses, 6:30. You can be at Lucan at 6:50. So if you have a job in Lucan, we can ensure that you get there. I want to remind that when we initially did community transit, we focused on a number of things. We focused on getting individuals to employment. We focused on our youth and post-secondary. And we also focused on our vulnerable. And then, of course, all residents. So you're going to see that the timing in here really allows all of that to happen. When we do make our stops, we made sure our stops are in major transit hubs for the City of London. So once you get in Masonville, you pretty well can go anywhere in the city. We're also taking you directly to Fanshawe College. Again, that's actually another great hub. You can get lots of places from that hub as well. Next. So the other route we want to talk about is Route 2. So this is combining our old Route 1 and Route 2. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if Morgan's here, but it actually goes back to, this was our original route that we designed in the first place. Based on community feedback is how we added the other route originally, but now we're coming back kind of full circle. So this is a combination of really understanding what worked in the other routes and combining them together. So we know, for example, Woodstock and Ingersoll, we had a lot of individuals get on the bus at those routes. So obviously they're included. We looked at the routes that we had in Dorchester and the stops, and we made sure we included the successful ones in this as well. Next. So I'm going to go next so you can actually see the same slide. So again, this is our new Route 2, which is Oxford County to Dorchester to London. So you can see that we do have a number of stops. Again, it's running throughout the whole day. So it's running from Monday to Friday, and it starts at 6:30. I just want to point out that that route from Woodstock is starting at the very same time as the other route used to. So we were really trying to make sure we knew what was successful and really match those times. And we tried to do that in Dorchester as much as we could as well, because we wanted to make sure we were leveraging on the success that we had previously. Next. So if you look at the right, here's an example of what our bus looks like. You see our logo on there, Middlesex Connect. We decided to keep the fares at $5. We hummed and hawed and we looked at maybe increasing them, but we also looked at what our other community transportation routes were doing. So for example, Huron Shores, which also goes from Lucan into London, they were still at the $5. So we thought it was really important just to stay with the $5 because we felt that was a successful rate as we go forward. And I just point out that the buses are also AOD compliant, and that we accept cash and electronic card payments. Next. So I talked about this already. You can see by the pictures, we're really just highlighting if you were taking one of our routes, where you could go and what you could do. So again, I point out there's post-secondary, there's a workplace, you can get to shopping if you get to Masonville Mall. We have medical because if you look at Ilderton, we're very close to a medical center. We're also stopping there at the library. And also if you get into the City of London, we talked about those hubs, you can go lots of places. So you can get to some medical, grocery stores, employment, lots of opportunities there. Next. We've also been talking about that app technology for a while. So we're in the process right now of really looking at that. We know that to be successful and to reach all generations who want to use transit, we really need to be able to provide that. So we're in the exploration stage right now. I have enough money in my budget to be able to do this. We're just making sure that we have the right fit for our community and our system and working with the other community transit providers to be similar in what they're using and learning on their successes as well. Next. So just kind of finally, as I've mentioned, the province has approved these changes. We've talked to them. There is no impact on the budget. Again, this is 100% funded by the province. And we've had accessibility review this and they've completed their review and everything is good to go. Next. So next steps. Well, the big one is I'm coming to council today, recommending that council approve the changes I have in front of you. Very excited about this. There's going to be a lot of work that has to be done, as you can imagine, when we switch over. And I'm talking about a May 29th switch. We're prepared, we're ready to go. And once we do that change, we'll be making sure that after today, we'll talk to our community partners, make sure everybody is aware of the changes that we're proposing. We'll be advertising when we go after May 29th. We really want to make this route successful, make these changes successful. And we're very excited to be doing this and working with Voyago as our partner, and also working with our other partners that are doing community transit across the province, and especially in our region, on how do we have some synergies and improvements and really work together to build transit, so we can see what our future with transit looks like. So I'm going to say I leave it open to questions, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Cindy. Certainly, a lot of exciting changes, and I can speak that I'm looking forward to watching that all unfold as the new routes take shape. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Grantham and then Councillor DeVete.
Thanks, Warden, through you to Cindy, and I apologize, Cindy, I didn't get a chance to ask this question, but this is great. Transit is needed. I know that from the own community I represent. How does the western side of the county fit into this? Because I know we have the same type of service, and is there a plan to reassess what happens in the western edge, Strathroy and Southwest Middlesex?
Thanks for the question through the warden. Absolutely. And that's why I said we're going to be reaching out and talking to our partners. So I know INUM has been reaching out to your manager there and talking about the Strathroy Caradoc route. We've been talking about what are some of your successes, some of our successes. You also heard at council, the last council meeting, IBI came and looked at the transportation needs across the county, and they gave some ideas of what we could think about and where do we go. And as you've probably seen, that's why we're building on this, building on the recommendations that IBI had. And then also there's been a lot of community discussion, and there's been surveys done and discussions with community individuals. So we really heard from feedback for our community when we put this forward, but you're absolutely right. We have to work together. We're not on our own, and we have to work with Strathroy Caradoc and the rest of the county to determine what transportation looks like in the future. What I'm so excited about this is it gives us another chance to reach out to another area, well, two areas of the community, and really see what transit looks like and how we can build on some of the successes that we have.
Councillor DeVete.
Thank you, Warden. Through you to Cindy, thank you for that report. It is exciting, and it's nice to see that we're going on to next steps. I have a quick question about that next step piece with respect to the implementation of the technology pieces. Do you already have an indication of what proportion, or by what percentage or what factor you might be able to increase ridership if people are able to use the app, and from your surveys and conversations with partners and so forth?
Through the warden, that's a great question. I can tell you I don't know the actual percentages, but there is evidence to show that if you do have app technology, that you will see an increase in ridership. And especially, as you can well imagine, if we look at the youth who are very comfortable using app technology, it also allows you to see where the bus is going. So you can look and say, oh, I see the bus is at that location right now. I can see it's going to be on time. So I'll go and get the bus if it's 20 minutes from now. You feel comfortable and go wait for the bus there. So we've seen some of what the tech app technology can look like, and it is really exciting and really cool. And I think that will engage the public when they can be a lot more informed about what our routes look like and timing of the route. So I think there's no question we're going to see an increase in ridership. When the next time I do a presentation, I'll make sure that I include some of that knowledge and best practices around the increase of the routes.
That is exciting. I'll look forward to another hockey stick. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you, Madam Warden, very much. Cindy, I enjoyed that report, and I look forward to that program expanding. Cindy, the question, and it's kind of the elephant in the closet. Do you see, it's hard to envision sustainability without government funding from higher levels of government. And that concerns me to some degree, because when you do the math and what the monies you've received and the ridership that you've had, and those numbers are very evident in that report. When you do the division, it is an exceptional amount of money per ride. So what is your long-term goal? Is it sustainability, or do you see something else?
Thanks for the question, and through the warden. That's a really good question in terms of, I guess, while I have the 100% funding, I want to do the best job that we can at the county and expose transit as far as I can go. And I see Bill wants to answer that in a second. The province has, at this point of time, indicated that we could look at gas tax. Now, when I talk about gas tax, it's actually a transit gas tax. We've started to look at those numbers. There's not a lot of funding available in those numbers. So I would say we have to have lots more dialogue and conversation with the province at this time to see what kind of funding. And we also have to work with our neighbors and our community partners around how do we have some more efficiencies and effectiveness in that funding. And we probably will be going back to the province to have some further conversations. But I guess my goal is do the best job we possibly can with the funding as we have it, and then think about how we expand more into the future and try to get more partners on board, maybe including employment partners. But I'm going to pass it over to the CIO.
Warden, my goal with the project is a little different in that we're trying to learn and we're trying to build awareness, and we're also trying to fail quickly. And what I mean by that is, and iterate. So what I mean by all of that is that this is not a model that's sustainable by any stretch. There's no way you can run a big bus down a lonely road and expect it to be sustainable in Middlesex County. It's just not going to work. The unfortunate part is that that's the only type of model that's supported by this type of provincial funding. So our goal is to not only learn about what routes work, but it's also to learn what doesn't work, so we can educate the province on, you can't simply take a program that's working in Chatham, Kent, for example, and then transplant it to Middlesex County and expect it to work. We need different alternatives, whether that be ride sharing, whether that be some things they've done that are Uber-like in other areas, whether that be zip cars or a million other things. We know something for sure. Transportation and transit is a major issue in Middlesex County. We also know that's only going to get worse with the type of population that we're seeing. We also know that whenever we talk to employers up and down that 401 corridor that are looking for employees, they name transit as the #1 problem they have in attracting, and housing, those two as the #1 and 2 problems they have with getting employees. So we have to keep at this, but this model is not sustainable. And we have to convince the province that a cookie cutter approach of throwing a big bus on a lonely road is not the only way it can be done. There's other things. In fact, the way I envision the program, Cindy will tell you, I envisioned this program to be much different based upon a program I saw work well in Marin County, just outside of San Francisco, very similar geography and urban demographics to us here. And that's what our original vision was. It just didn't fit with the provincial program. So we have to try this, we have to learn from it, and then keep iterating and not lose what we've learned from this, and then also try to build more awareness about the need. Those are also the goals of the program.
Councillor Robb.
Thank you. Through the warden, to Bill, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I agree. I see these buses going down the road, and no disrespect to the, what's happening, but with 2 people in it or 1 passenger in it. And I agree, this is not sustainable with a bus system, but to find out, to look at it and see what does work. I agree with that. I feel better hearing that actually from you, Bill, than I do with seeing a bus continue to go down the road.
Any other questions or comments for Cindy? Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I think as time evolves and population grows, and we see it in Lukemedal now with all the apartments, that this may be increased ridership with apartment buildings and people not wanting to commute if they've got to go to London. So I think there's a possibility there that with that sort of thing happening in the county, that it may increase the ridership.
Let's hope. Any other questions, comments? Okay, before I call the vote for the recommended motion in front of us, I just want to thank Cindy and Kara and Anam for all the work that they've done. This, as Cindy said, this was a lot of work to put these routes together, and certainly appreciate all the background and the back time that you put into this. So you've got a recommended motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor DeVete and Councillor Rock. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, sticking with community transportation, Cindy, I'll turn it over to you to talk to the agreement.
Thanks, and through the warden. Well, this one will be a little quicker. So the county has been working with Voyago since 2020. So Voyago, of course, delivers our service, and Voyago also works with our neighboring routes. As we heard, Strathroy-Caradoc also works with Voyago. This project, again, is funded 100% from Community Transportation Grant, the province of Ontario. I've also worked with our legal department on preparing this agreement. I will note that the rates are going up. We heard a little bit again this morning about inflation and everything. So our rates are going from $82 an hour to $89 an hour. Otherwise, other than the big switch of the two different routes, everything has been incorporated in our discussions with Voyago. So at this time, I'm recommending that council authorize and approve the Community Transportation Service amending agreement with Voyago, and authorize the warden and county clerk to execute the agreement. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions about the agreement.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Questions on the agreement in front of you? Okay, then with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that Cindy read back. Councillor Mayhew and Councillor Spibert. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we now have another agreement in front of us. This is a telecommunications one, and Wayne is going to take us through this. Over to you, Wayne.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Warden, to Council. This is a North Frontenac Telephone Company matter, NFTC for short. They own a lot of their assets through a company called NFTC Middlesex. And NFTC commenced a fiber build out in Middlesex County in 2019. And Strathroy-Caradoc and Southwest Middlesex, they have blanket agreements with NFT concerning their local roads. But concerning county roads, we have a site-specific agreement with NFTC for Mount Bridges and Southwest. And the next step in that process is they'd like to expand on county roads. And so they would like another site-specific agreement, this time with their affiliate named NFTC Southwest. Now, the reason we have site-specific agreements here and not blanket agreements that deal with all the roads throughout the county is just to suit their financing model. They wanted to sign a couple small agreements with specific affiliates. So with respect to those affiliates, they are all registered with the CRTC, which is required for them to be able to do telecommunications work in Canada. And so this municipal access agreement is in its usual form, approved by myself, and it protects the county appropriately while furthering development. So moving forward, I can tell you that North Middlesex does have a blanket municipal access agreement for another phase of this project. And the NFTC will be back here at County Council as well in the next month, because they'll be requesting a blanket agreement to do the rest of their project with respect to county roads. And finally, there is an upcoming agreement with Lucan Badolf and with Adelaide Metcalf further to finish off the project. So the nice thing about all these various agreements is that they've all been able to be discussed at the same time in an efficient manner, with me representing everyone in the matter. And so it's just a matter of time now, really, before the rest of this build out happens. So for today's purposes, the recommendation for council is for it to approve the site-specific municipal access agreement with North Frontenac Telephone Southwest Corp concerning county roads in southwestern Middlesex, and for that agreement to be approved and endorsed.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Questions on that agreement? Okay, seeing none, then you've got the motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder for that one. Councillor Clark and Councillor Mayhew. All in favor? And that's carried. Any inquiries? Any notices of motion? Any councillor comments? Councillor Robb.
Thank you, Warden. I just wanted to take the time to thank everyone who were able to attend to the municipal day that was held at North Middlesex. And I want to thank the staff, the county staff and the North Middlesex staff for putting that program together. I think they did a really good job and I appreciate all that effort.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ropp. It really was a good morning and it was great to see so many of our colleagues there from across the county. Any other comments to share? Okay, then I need a mover and a seconder to move us into the committee of the whole at 1:45 PM. Councillor Smybert and Councillor Grantham. All in favor? And that's carried. We're in the committee of the whole. And it's my pleasure to be able to welcome at this time our new inspector of the new detachment commander of the OPP, Inspector Ross Stewart. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to Middlesex County, to the region. I know we got to speak briefly before the meeting, and I know your hope is to get out to our local municipalities. But this is a great introduction and so glad that you've taken the time to come and spend a few minutes with us today. So I will hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Madam Warden and members of council. It is truly my pleasure to be able to be here today to introduce myself and say hello and start the process of getting to know each other a little bit. As the warden has mentioned, I am the new detachment commander for Middlesex County OPP. I've been in the role for 5 weeks at this point. So I think it's an appropriate time for me to come before you and introduce who I am and give you a little bit of my background. 54 years old, born and raised in Markham, so the north end of the GTA. Youngest of 5 kids and the first police officer in my family ever. So a real honor for me to be in this role. Attended high school in Markham and then came to University of Western Ontario for my undergrad, where in a very real sense, the London area became home for me. Following my time at Western, I got hired by the OPP and was deployed out of Peterborough Detachment, which considering some of the detachment areas that we have around the province, being sent to cottage country was a real pleasure for a first posting. And it was there that I had the opportunity to do my patrol time and really begin to learn to become a police officer. From there, I went into our forensic identification unit and I worked for a number of years doing major case investigations out of the Belleville office and then coming home to London when the forensic unit was still down on Exeter Road prior to the new facility being built down in Tillsonburg. Following that, I got promoted out of our Chatham office where I oversaw a team that focused upon smuggling of guns and drugs coming across the Ambassador Bridge and the tunnel in Windsor. Very interesting work, as you can imagine. And then following that, I went to Lambton Detachment in the Sarnia area as a frontline supervisor and then promoted to staff sergeant where I became the operations manager and I oversaw operations for the last number of years in the Sarnia-Lambton area. Most recently, prior to coming into the role that I'm in today, I was the regional traffic manager for West Region, working at a regional headquarters here in London, where I oversaw and supervised our traffic and marine program for West Region. To be honest with you, my heart is really at detachment, and with 6 years left before I can retire, my goal all along was to become a detachment commander and have the opportunity to sort of blaze my own trail and to supervise a full detachment. And I wanted to get home to London. So the opportunity to accomplish both of those goals at the same time means a tremendous amount to me. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity. If I could just take a couple of minutes to talk about what some of my priorities are, so what you can expect from me as your detachment commander. One of the things that I'm most passionate about is mental health. Maybe some of the folks in the room are aware of our MCERT program, which is our mobile crisis response team. For those who may not be aware, it's a program that sees crisis workers physically deployed with our officers, our uniform officers in cruisers, and attending mental health related calls to provide their area of expertise when it comes to how to manage some of those situations. Certainly over the last few years, I think we've all seen in the media the benefit that comes from having a crisis worker physically present at some of these calls. Because really that's their area of expertise, and it's not necessarily a police officer's area of expertise as much as we try to master that art. Some of the things that we've seen locally in that program is a reduction in the number of mental health related apprehensions that our officers are doing, which is fantastic news. And I really think the reason why that is happening is because those experts are on ground making those determinations as to whether the person needs to go to a facility for an assessment or not. But also equally as important to that is we've seen a tremendous increase in the number of referrals to different social services that these good folks are receiving from our officers and from the crisis workers at the time when they're having the initial interaction with the police. And that's really important because then there's not a delay in those folks getting that meaningful help that they need. And subsequently from the benefit that comes with having fewer apprehensions and those referrals being made at the time, ultimately it's a benefit to each of your communities as it puts those officers back out on the street, being visible and doing the other duties that they're assigned to. So it's good news all the way around, but most importantly, the community members that need the help are getting the help and they're getting it quickly. So one of my priorities is going to be to not only continue this program, but I want to see it expanded. Recently, the Ontario government has committed to doubling the amount of grants that are available for these types of programs. And to be blunt, that's something I plan on taking advantage of in Middlesex. My vision is to eventually have a mental health crisis worker embedded with each of our platoons throughout Middlesex, so 24/7 coverage. That's a lofty goal. I appreciate that. But nevertheless, if the funding streams come in place, I'm confident that we can accomplish that. And certainly, I think it would benefit the community tremendously, and frankly, as well as our shifts as well. One of the other things that I'm very passionate about is traffic safety. You can probably appreciate that from me being the regional traffic manager for a period of time. I'm very concerned with regard to the types of driving behaviors that we see every day from some folks on the road. And it's an important priority for me that has certainly been messaged to our folks in Middlesex that I expect to see not just education, but also enforcement taking place of things like aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. Those are really the critical components that we already know statistically lead to serious injury and fatal collisions on our roadways throughout the county. And so by putting a concerted effort, focusing both on the enforcement elements, but equally as important, the educational components, I'm hopeful that we'll continue to see the trends that we've seen over the last couple of years with the number of those types of incidents actually decreasing. The final thing that I would like to touch on is the relationship with each of the municipalities and with County Council. That's in fact the reason why I'm here today. Communication is a very important thing to me. The reality is that Middlesex OPP is not just a traffic detachment, but as you all know, it is a very busy general duties detachment as well. Where our officers on a shift by shift basis are responding to a wide variety of different calls that we don't just see in some of the urban centers, but frankly, we see them throughout counties as well. And Middlesex is definitely one of those detachment areas. And so as a result, I feel that it's very important that from the outset, you folks feel that you've got an understanding as to who I am and what my priorities are. But also that you've got a point of contact and a person that you can come to for concerns that your individual communities may have. I've provided everybody with a business card with my contact information on that. That's because I want you to reach out to me. I want to have those conversations. I would love to have the opportunity to meet with each of your councils individually for one-on-one conversations about what is specifically most important to your communities. How is the OPP doing? Are we doing a good job? Are there things that you need? Are there things that you would like to see differently? For example, what is the reporting structure in relation to crime or traffic trends that you would like to see? I appreciate that as the new Police Service Act comes into place, there'll be more representation on our Police Services Board. But regardless of that, I feel that the responsibility is mine to be sure that I'm communicating with every municipality as to what's occurring in your community from a public safety standpoint, and that we're working together to address those concerns, if you will. Madam Warden, those are really my comments for today. I would certainly encourage everybody to please reach out to me and set up an opportunity to meet. Don't be offended if I reach out to you first. So barring any questions that anyone may have, that's my comments for today, Madam Warden. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Inspector Stewart. Before I open it up for questions, I can't tell you how pleased I am personally, but collectively on behalf of my colleagues, that you stated your number one priority was mental illness. We've taken a strong stance in supporting the MCERT program, both at the county level and at many of our local levels. And then, of course, I'm involved with the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, and we have advocated for that additional funding. So anything that Middlesex County can do in your efforts to expand that program, I can assure you that you will get the full support of this council. We have seen the benefits of that program in our community, and I certainly applaud you on that, and spoke many times to your predecessor about the success of that. So I'm extremely pleased to hear that. Any questions or comments from my colleagues around the horseshoe? Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you very much, Madam Warden and Inspector Stewart. Thank you very much for that talk. Southwest Middlesex looks forward to you visiting us someday, and we will certainly are very pleased with your position that you've attained. Inspector Stewart, Middlesex County has, as you know, a tremendous rural area, and for those in my municipality that watch our budget very, very closely, they see that we pay you in the vicinity of $1 million a year for OPP services. And there is considerable auto theft. And if I could be a little more specific, I think we could go pickup truck theft in our region and drive-through break-ins. What do you see on the horizon on that?
Well, thank you for the question, Councillor. Certainly, your concerns are well-founded. There has been a notable increase, frankly, across the province in the number of vehicle thefts. And certainly within Middlesex County itself. Some good news that has just recently been announced, if I'm not mistaken, it was yesterday. The provincial government has provided significant funding to reestablish a provincial auto theft squad that will focus on areas throughout the province where auto theft has been identified as needing significant police attention. Certainly, I will be advocating that we have members assigned specifically to this area because I do know that it is a problem. And I'm hopeful that that will happen. From a day-to-day standpoint, I can assure you that preventing all manner of property-related crimes is absolutely a priority for us and will continue to be so. It's something that our shifts on a shift-by-shift basis focus upon. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to, as a result, see some of those statistics that we have seen increase in the last number of years begin to come down over the next year. As I prepare our next action plan for the next 3 years, property-related crime is one of the priorities that I will be building into that plan with a specific focus on auto theft, sir.
Hey, any other comments? Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to meet you. And as I can speak on behalf of my colleagues, and as Councillor Mayhew said, we all look forward to seeing you in our local municipalities soon. So thank you. With that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder just to receive the introduction from Inspector Stewart for information. Councillor DeVete and Councillor McMillan. All in favor, and that's carried. Okay, well, moving now on to the reports from our county officers. And the first one up this afternoon is from our planning department. And I'm going to turn it over to Dirk, and it looks like maybe Abby is moving up too. So it's going to be a joint presentation, but certainly Dirk is going to give us some background information on Bill 97 and of course the new PPS. So I will turn it over to you,
Okay.
Dirk.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So yeah, as Abby Heddle Jacobs just settles herself, she's going to give the sort of the background, high level summary. The presentations already are pretty high level because there's a lot of change. Abby's going to hit the key points, and then I'll come back on. We talk about sort of implications for Middlesex.
Thank you, Dirk. Next slide, please. So on April 6th, the provincial government released its most recent proposals in support of the Housing Supply Action Plan, which include Bill 97, the Helping Homebuyers Protecting Tenants Act, as well as a new proposed provincial planning statement. Next slide, please. So Bill 97 proposes amendments to a number of different provincial statutes, with many of the proposed changes relating to increased protections for tenants and prospective homebuyers. The majority of the proposed changes to the Planning Act build on or clarify previous changes that were implemented through Bill 23 and Bill 109. Next slide, please. The proposed changes to the Planning Act include postponing the Bill 109 date for planning fee refunds until July 1st of this year. The minister would be given additional authority, including exempting ministers' zoning orders from complying with provincial policies, as well as more technical changes related to interim control bylaws, areas of employment, and additional residential unit parking requirements. Next slide, please. So the existing provincial policy statement and a place to grow, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, are two separate documents that provide provincial policy direction on land use planning. The province is proposing to combine the two documents into a province-wide provincial planning statement. Generally speaking, this is a move to a more permissive planning framework. Next slide, please. The proposed PPS policies are grouped under 5 pillars as outlined on the slide, and we will make our way through each pillar today. So the proposed changes intended to support generating housing supply include requiring municipalities to provide a range and mix of housing options, with the definition of housing options being further expanded to include additional housing types. Requiring municipalities to permit more housing on farms, including residential lot creation in prime ag areas, ARUs, and housing for farm workers. It is noted, however, that the definition and any references to affordable housing are removed from the proposed document. Next slide, please. The proposed changes intended to support making land available for development include requiring municipalities to plan for a minimum 25-year horizon with no maximum time frame. And this is opposed to the current maximum 25-year horizon that we use today. There would also be greater flexibility for municipalities and private landowners to apply to expand settlement area boundaries without a municipal comprehensive review and without as rigorous criteria. Next slide, please. The proposed changes intended to assist in the provision of infrastructure to support development include relaxing the servicing hierarchy and providing more permissive language as it relates to development on private communal or private services. And then another change to note under this pillar is the concept of strategic growth areas proposed to be integrated from a place to grow. So that would be new to us. Next slide, please. The proposed changes intended to balance housing with resources include the introduction of the concept of watershed planning. And then it is noted that the natural heritage policies and any related definitions are still being considered by the provincial government, so they're not included in the proposed document. However, the province has indicated that once the proposed policies are ready for review and input, they will be uploaded under a separate posting on the environmental registry. So staff will just continue to monitor for those. Next slide, please. From an implementation perspective, the proposed PPS makes it clear that the policies represent minimum standards. However, there are a few areas in the document that prohibit municipalities from implementing policies that would exceed the minimum standards. An example of this is the new lot creation in agricultural areas policies. The document also clarifies that all council decisions must be consistent with this planning statement once it is in force and effect, regardless of if the official plan has been updated to be consistent with the planning statement. So I'm going to pass things over to Dirk now to talk about implications for the county. Thank you.
So through the warden. So we've identified sort of, as I said, there's a lot of changes and really the new PPS would be a significant change in planning in Ontario, frankly. It would necessitate updating all of our official plans and our zoning bylaws. And then we've looked at sort of the 5 areas that we think are of most significant: additional residential units, lot creation, settlement areas, county official plan responsibilities, and then just a catch-all at the end. So the first area is ARUs, as planners call them, additional residential units. And we're on the 3rd version of this now, and it's really intended to be an existing house, and then you can add an apartment into it, or maybe 2 apartments, or you could have an additional unit or a small tiny home in your backyard. Bill 23 gave as of right permissions within fully serviced urban areas, municipal sewer and water. In addition to that, the PPS would allow for more flexibility to consider those in the agricultural area. And it appears that it would allow 3 separate structures. So your house and then 2 subordinate smaller homes, which is different than the previous definition. It's not completely aligned with the definition that's in the Planning Act right now. So they may be looking at that. Although I would say it's not that far off from what County Council adopted in County's Fish Plan Amendment number 3, because it talks about clustering and trying to put those on a farm close together, so you're not making as much of an impact. The next area, next slide, is lot creation. So I just included the entire policy excerpt there for someone just downloading this at home, but I'll go to the next slide. And really what it indicates is that as we understand the policy, 3 residential lots could be severed from each farm, subject to certain criteria. There are some interpretation questions when you read that and when you try to go through it. I can say that I've had an opportunity to meet with all the county planning directors across the province and also with the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. There's a planning subcommittee on that. So although I can't 100% say this is the province's intention, I can tell you this is what certainly in southwestern Ontario, this is what the planning and counties are considering. Basically, as I said, it would allow for 3 lots to be severed from a farm. In addition, of course, the surplus dwelling consent policies would remain, and then you could build up to 3 residential units on all of those lots. PPS, and Abby mentioned this already, this is one of those areas where it expressly prohibits municipalities from being more strict on that policy. And it really is a fundamental policy change. Just over 50 years ago, is when the province initially brought in agricultural land protection. And although there have been some exceptions for infilling lots over the years or for severance of retirement lots until the 80s, generally for 50 years, new residential development hasn't been allowed in the agricultural area. So then I put, if we can go forward a couple of slides, we put in a couple of maps. And again, this is our understanding of the policy. This is a couple of farms and with some previous probably surplus dwelling consents. And then the red lots would be what we believe the policy would allow. The next slide, this is a sort of a typical township block for, say, like a London township or a North Dorchester sort of survey. And again, hypothetically, what a number of 3 lots could look like from each dwelling. And that's a kind of a normal rural block. And the number that you're seeing from other municipalities is sort of that consideration that you can get about 30 new residential lots in a typical township block. And of course, it varies greatly depending on where you are. And then the next slide, this is just, we undertook a mapping exercise based on the discussions at the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus group. And it's really just looking at the number of properties that may be eligible for an application like this. And I do want to be really clear on this. Of course, not everyone would apply for this. This is a potential map. I have no idea. I don't think anyone does how many people would apply for it. I know in discussions with others, we certainly think I would give a couple observations. There is some pent up demand for this sort of lot. So I would suspect that we would get a number of applications initially. And then we know that near urban areas, Strathroy, Luke, and the city of London especially, there will be more demand for lots that are sort of near to urban, but in a rural context. So based on that criteria, there in our mapping exercise, there are approximately 7,100 parcels across the county that may qualify, which is 21,000 lots. Again, not everyone would apply, but even at 1 acre, that's 21,000 acres, which exceeds all of the land within our current settlement areas in the county. And really that kind of growth could be accommodated on probably 20 or 25% of that land if it was directed to an urban area. So in terms of implications, next slide, please. And I had an opportunity to sit down with the CAOs, local CAOs last week, and they could explain this better than I can in terms of service provision and what this might mean for, especially for local services, but to a degree for county services. There certainly would be an impact on agriculture, especially livestock farming, provision of municipal services, the transportation network. And the last one I think that might miss is just this sort of, if this growth was to occur, I would suspect that there's only so much growth that can occur within our communities, and that so this growth would occur at the expense of it happening within our fully serviced settlement areas. So I think there is a real potential for inefficient service provision and for really underutilizing the municipal infrastructure, whether it's your sanitary or water systems, if that development is occurring elsewhere. So next area then is boundary adjustments. And Abby gave a bit of an overview on this, but you'll recall that until quite recently, we planned for sort of a maximum of a 20-year planning horizon for our settlement areas. That was recently expanded to a maximum of 25. Now the language would be a minimum of 25 without specifying a maximum. Also moving away from a municipal comprehensive review. And really it lessens the criteria, including removal of the demonstration of need. It also would allow, so it does certainly give municipalities more flexibility. And I think there are some positives there for municipalities to look at settlement areas on a more regular basis as opportunities come up. It also would allow landowners to seek on a case-by-case basis applications for settlement area boundary expansions. And so I certainly have some concerns in this that it may lead to land speculation and beyond growth management in terms of a number of applications. And I think it may lead to sort of a strain on municipal infrastructure and finances if uncoordinated boundary expansions or disjointed boundary expansions occur. So, and even something, the new PPS language talks about planning for infrastructure or planning for schools. It would be, I would submit, harder to do that when we don't know the direction that municipal growth is going to occur. So as I said, there is some, I think there's some sort of middle ground on a policy like this where you could give municipalities some more flexibility. But in the end, I would strongly advocate that municipalities should be the final determinants of which settlements are going to grow and then which direction they're going to grow. Almost done. County official plan growth. There's a number of areas where the PPS would appear to place additional requirements in the county at the upper tier level to establish population, housing, employment projections, identify growth and development where will be focused, including density targets. And it looks like they're looking for that to be in a county level official plan. And frankly, I believe what they're doing here is because county official plan must be approved by the province. So if these growth matters are included in the county's official plan and then the province has an opportunity to approve it, then they know, and then they can set the targets for you, and then that would trickle down to your local official plans. So there's a number of areas here that aren't real clear yet, but if this was to go ahead, council would have to very carefully look at that. And then in terms of other considerations, and then Abby mentioned this, the recent changes to the conservation authorities on natural heritage are still in this sort of gray area. We were expecting that this most recent announcements would give us some clarity on that, and it hasn't yet. We understand they're still working on that. So we're still not sure what direction the province wants us to go, and therefore I still don't have a great, I can't put something before you in terms of what we should do. Abby mentioned this, there's some wording in there about the role of housing service manager and the relationships to planning. And so I think that's one of those areas, because there's a few counties like us where the service manager is not the county. We just want to be mindful that what the intention of that policy is. And obviously we work very closely with the City of London as a service manager, but planning is different in Middlesex County, and housing and growth needs are different in Middlesex County than in the City of London. And the last thing I would note is there are a number of areas in the new policy where it says subject to provincial guidance. And we really, really hope that the government would be able to provide those in a timely manner. If we're going to have to implement this soon, then if they're going to give us guidance, it would be great if we could have that up front rather than us sort of, I guess I would give ARU as the example. We spent a bunch of time on that and we put policies in place, and then the rules changed again. So if there's going to be guidance on that, that would be helpful to have that so that we could sort of execute that quickly. And that was my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or Abby, if there's anything difficult.
Great. Thank you so much, Dirk and Abby. Certainly lots to unpack there. And you haven't had a lot of time to unpack all of this. And I think you've done a great job in drilling down as best you can, and certainly appreciate the background on that. Just to let council know that comments, I think the deadline for the comments, was it yesterday or Friday, Dirk?
The Bill 97 comments were, it was released on April 6th, and the comments were last Friday, and then there's still a window for the PPS comments.
So we did submit, or Dirk did submit a letter on Bill 97. And I think it has been circulated to council. If not, we'll make sure that it is for your information. Okay, questions or comments, discussion points for Dirk and Abby. Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So through you to the director, same question I tend to ask frequently, but with this unknown role that the CAs will likely have with natural heritage, has there been any coordinated thought as to how the county may assist the municipalities with that, should the province stay on its current path?
Through the warden, at the budget committee level, that we it was discussed, and options, of course, are consultants, the hiring, doing nothing, partnering. The budget committee did give us direction to sort of two things, I guess I would say. One is to see what the province says, because we are, as I said already, we expected to by now know more. I do think in the next couple of weeks we'll hear from them. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're exploring partnerships, whether there are other nearby municipalities or organizations that are sort of in the same boat as us, and whether we could kind of take a common approach on it.
Bill, did you want to?
Yeah, so just an update on partnerships. That's the funny part about partnerships. It takes two to tango, and everybody is waiting to see what's happening here. So I have identified a couple of partnership opportunities, Warden, where there is some capacity, but the definition of some capacity is an active question, because until we know the answers to this, it's hard for another partner to commit to say, okay, yes, I have this capacity. So we're in a bit of limbo right now until we, and that's not the answer you're looking for. I would wish I could present an agreement to you, but nobody really wants to commit until they know what these rules are going to be. I think ultimately what you're going to see happen is we have a good relationship with a neighboring county that has some capacity. I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. If council wants to head in that direction, that's probably going to be the best option. And if not, then we're going to have to get together collectively, lower tier, upper tier, and everybody, and come together and figure out, are we just going to abandon that component, or are we going to hire our own service if we can't partner with someone else? But it's just way too early right now to build a partnership, unfortunately.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Warden, and through you to the director. I noticed on one of the slides, 3, under infrastructure, the first point that you have there, proposed language relaxes the servicing hierarchy which places full municipal service as the preferred form of servicing for settlement areas by providing greater flexibility for development on partial or private services. Now, in areas where there are still a lot in the way of septic tanks, is that what they're talking about, or is this a different beast?
Through the warden, the provincial policy statement that's in place today has a hierarchy with, and it's fairly clear. Full municipal services are preferred. Then it's communal and partial and private, and you work your way down. My read of the in talking to others of the new PPS is it still says that in that order, but it gives more flexibility, and it adds some new wording, undefined terms. What was the one is dispersed municipal services, which that isn't clear to us yet. But it certainly, I know in some of the counties a little closer to Toronto, they're quite concerned that right now, I guess Temp Center would be a great example where you're focusing most of your growth, the Dorchester and Thorndale, on full municipal services. Some counties are concerned that the opening of the policies will provide more room for proponents to come in and say a Mossley or a smaller community and develop large subdivisions on private services, where the municipality is all of your other investments, all your other infrastructure is all going to Dorchester and Thorndale. So that's the concern, is sort of that relaxation of the wording will leave municipalities open to additional applications that may not be what you would focus on otherwise.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Smybert?
Thank you, Warden, to the Director of Planning and Development. Interesting how quickly the province is moving on this new legislation. Meanwhile, they're still holding on to the county official plan for review, which is holding up other official plans locally. Any comment or insight that you might have for us in terms of when those will be reviewed or dealt with?
I don't, through the warden, I don't have an answer. The warden's letter did remind the minister that we are waiting on that decision and that there are further implications of that. But yeah, so far the ministry has not said anything on that. And I should maybe just point out too, it's not us, just us. They haven't approved, to my knowledge, any county official plans yet.
I'll bite my tongue. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Grant? Oh, Bill, did you have a comment first?
No.
Councillor Grantham.
Yeah, thank you. Warden, more of a comment in be careful what you wish for. Because I have often thought that, excuse me, that we need to allow more residential units on farms. I've often thought that, and as you see the housing crisis and our attempts to keep farm youth at home, and I'm familiar with retirement lots from my past with my grandfather, but I think 3 has gone a little bit too far. So just a comment, I think we've gone a little too far, but there has to be a middle ground somewhere where we can keep rural youth at home and try to alleviate the housing crisis, you know, even one more residential lot per 100 acres. But I do believe we've gone a little bit too far with 3 lots, but somewhere there needs to be a middle ground. So.
Yeah, Warden. So what we're trying to communicate to the province on this is captured in the letter that you're going to see, but it's more than just a planning matter that we're trying to communicate. Often when we talk to the province about legislative change, they think very tunnel vision towards their specific planning matter. And what we're trying to get them to open up their eyes to is the impact this has on every one of our service areas. That sea of red that you saw across the map, we know how that works. We know what that looks like going forward. That starts with private services, with people from urban areas, that has impacts on MDS. It has impacts on those private services, because eventually those private services get contaminated. And then you have demand from your local municipality to have long roads filled with very expensive pipes. To the math, the municipal economics on this is unquestionable of how this works over a 10-year period. And then extrapolate that to every one of our service areas, where currently all of our services are designed to really respond to those 5 nodes that of urban growth. And you already heard Dirk say that the amount of acres that are in play here are bigger than all of our settlement combined. So it changes how we deliver our services. It changes where we deliver our services. And these are the topics we're trying to have with the province, as Colin said, there has to be a middle ground because this will have a massive impact well beyond that massive negative impact that may not be seen for 5 to 10 years while addressing sort of some short-term challenges that we think collectively the brain powers around this table to address in a much more organized and more fulfilling way by having growth in our urban growth areas. So quite a change. That red map is the most fundamental change we've seen legislatively around here in a long time. It affects everything. So we're going to keep communicating with the province warden, as you know, in terms of these unintended things, but really the letter you're going to see so far is really mostly about planning.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and thank you, Mr. Rayburn, for those remarks. That map was a visual shock when we looked at it. Southwest Middlesex, as many of you know, has been a severance-friendly municipality, but our citizenry are looking at this and they're objecting to it. They are the comments have been made that the consideration of a 50-acre severance would have much less impact on farming than this proposal would have. And those 50-acre severances are not estate lots. Those are the sons and daughters, the nieces and nephews of farmers in our area that want these 50 acres. So I think the province's view on this was very short-sighted. And, that's conversation on smaller severances of 50-acre parcels should have been picked up, and this would not have been necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mayhew. Councillor DeVete.
The only adjective I wanted to add to Bill's comments, I think the word I would use is integrative thinking. This is just really throwing stuff at the map and hope it sticks, as opposed to considering all the costs and the benefits, the services, even building community. When you've got people lined up down the road, it's not the same as trying to build communities and nodes where people can gather and recreate or whatever. It seems very disjointed.
Councillor Clark.
I'm probably stating the obvious, but coming from a rural background, I find it very disturbing, the potential loss of acreage taken out of production. And it really drives the point home when you do look at that map, and I find it very disturbing.
Thank you for that. Last call for comments or questions on that. So the letter that I referred to is attached to the agenda, goes to show you how much I pay attention. But it is there for your reference. I do believe Paul is sending it out as well. So being attached to our agenda, certainly anybody can access that on the website. And I think that they'll see a very strong statement. With that in mind, I want to thank Abby and Dirk again for their presentation. And I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that presentation for information, please. Councillor McGuire and Councillor McMillan. All in favor? And that's carried. Moving on, economic and development. Kara, great to have you with us this afternoon, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. And through you, Warden, I'm pleased to be here on behalf of my department to provide you with an update on some of the work that we have been doing, as well as some of the work that we will be doing over the course of this upcoming year. So, as you know, the Department of Economic Development also operates as the destination marketing organization for tourism for the region as well. So reminding you of that. This first slide, if we could, talks about the strategic priorities and ties them back. As you know, Middlesex County has its own strategic plan that was developed for 2021 through 2024. And alongside of that, in 2021, we collectively put together, along with the warden and myself, who is then serving as well, an economic resiliency task force that then rolled into a committee in which we went to the community and to all of our local municipalities to develop the economic development strategic plan, which runs from 2021 to 2025. So therein lies some of the alignments of the two strategies for your review. Next slide, please. So just to introduce you to the small team that we are in economic development and tourism, there's currently 5 of us working within the department, myself in the role of director. Taylor Rummel, who many of you have met, she's been with us 5 years now, is our economic development communications coordinator. We also have Sean Columbus now as our economic development officer on a full-time basis, which many of your municipalities has quickly gotten to know. Anne-Marie Flood is our economic development and tourism assistant, working primarily out of our office in the Kamoka Wellness Center. And then Holly Parks, who is currently on contract with us for the remainder of this year, working on a specific youth workforce education project that I'll reference in my presentation as well. Next slide. So first, I'm going to run you through some of the 2022 highlights for the benefit of council, but also for the benefit of our local visitors today. Next slide. One of the things that our department does quite regularly is advocacy on the economic development side. And we do that by creating a number of regional partnerships and relationships. So collaboration is consistently taking place with our neighboring counties and regions, our local municipalities, and provincial and federal sources on upcoming economic development opportunities. And we are showcasing and sharing those with your local municipalities, but as well with the business community on an ongoing basis. We also have membership in the following organizations. We'll talk a little bit today about Middlesex Workforce Development Partnership, which is co-chaired by Cindy Howard and myself. We also are part of organizations like SWATC, which is the Southwestern Ontario Tourism Corporation, SCORE, which you know as South Central Ontario Region, Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, which has been mentioned earlier today. Other organizations include the Ontario Food Cluster, which I have co-chaired for the last 3 years, and we also act as the treasurer for that organization. We're a member of the Ontario Manufacturing Communities Alliance, EDAC and EDCO, which are our relative federal and provincial organizations for economic development. We're also a part of the Middlesex London Food Policy Council. We have a representative from council on that, as well as a staff representative. We're a member of the Elgin, Middlesex, Oxford Local Training Board and Chambers of Commerce in London and Strathroy. So a lot of partnerships and organizations and advocacy that takes place among those groups for the benefit of our county and our municipalities. Next slide, please. One of the things that we have done as well is we are consistently working together with our planning department, obviously, to look at the benefits to agriculture and ensuring that we are making sure that we have the voice of agriculture in every way possible. That includes looking at the official plan and economic development alignments. It also includes putting together information such as that which you see here, which is specific to Middlesex County regarding agribusiness in our communities, crop growth, and those kind of things. Last year, we put together a crop education sign program in partnership with the OFA. And MFA, and you may see those signs out in your communities identifying crops for the general population and their use. We also ensure that agribusiness is engaged in all of our relevant committees, and that includes the Middlesex Workforce Development Partnership, and that there's department representation, as mentioned, on the Middlesex London Food Policy Council. Next slide, please. We're also engaged in housing development. So together with my colleagues from Planning and Social Services, we've been highly engaged in the attainable housing strategy taking place. We also support very much in the development of community improvement plans, and you'll hear me talk about more of those today, and looking at implementation inclusive of housing investments. Next slide. In terms of marketing promotions, if you're not already following us on our social channels, the Economic Development and Tourism Department actually has 3 different brands that we support. The first is Invest in Middlesex, which is very much geared towards existing businesses and potential investors in our community. The second is our Visit Middlesex County branding, which is selective to our visitors and local residents looking for tourism opportunities in this area. And then we also have a Work in Middlesex brand, and that includes websites as well as a variety of social media channels. Obviously, the Work in Middlesex is designed for the job seeker, but also is designed for the employers throughout our area to have access to all of the training and resources that they require, as well as access to being able to post jobs. We in our department produce and distribute tourism maps, investors guides, success story brochures, and a wide variety of promotional items throughout your communities. We also produce a quarterly newsletter featuring local business, program, and promotional highlights, which we would definitely encourage all council members as well as local staff to be a part of. And you can do that if you haven't already by just going on one of our websites and clicking the link to do so. Next slide, please. 2022 did not come without some marketing recognition as well, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our staff in the production of many of the promotional materials that we put out. And last year, I'm very excited to say that we received 4 Hermes Creative Awards for marketing. Those are international awards for marketing, and all for our tourism map, our commercial, as well as other products. We also received in 2022 the Tourism Award for Ontario for collaboration, and that was for our From Our Hands to Your Table project, which I'll talk a little bit more about if you're not familiar. As many of you know, and we've had conversations to this like, the Economic Development Department has been highly engaged in the development of community improvement plans and providing advice and direction to some of the local municipalities, along with our planning department, in terms of the development and implementation, as well as refinement of many of our community improvement plans. In 2022, we partnered on the development of our last one, which is for the municipality of Adelaide Metcalfe. We're very excited to see their CIP coming on board. That brings the total number of local municipal CIP programs to 6 in Middlesex County. And the county partnership now extends to the implementation of those CIPs, not just the development. Next slide, please. Talk a little bit about 2022 CIP results and the county contribution to the development and implementation of those plans. And really, this is a story about the return on investment and the development that takes place from the private sector within those municipalities. So in terms of creating incentives, which can often be a competitive type of advantage to our communities in terms of showing support to the private sector, this is a little example of the return on investment that we're seeing versus the municipal contribution to these types of projects over the course of 2022. Next slide, please. Also in 2022, and one of the very important aspects of our department is not to just look for new investment, but also to work within the business community that exists here. And so a lot of our work deals with business retention and expansion. And so in 2022, we did a follow-up survey as we were starting to see some of the relief from the COVID pandemic. We put together a total of 25 questions. We had 39 eligible businesses respond to the survey, and we conduct one-on-one interviews with more planned into 2023. And in lots of cases, we're working with your local staff to conduct those interviews together and collectively to gather information. So oftentimes you'll see our department pushing out information that we have garnered from our surveys or interviews in a collective forum so that that can be shared with your offices as well as the general public. Next one. This last year, we took on a new project. Many of you will know our department has a long history of producing video content. And this year we launched a sector video series We began with agribusiness and manufacturing. I believe many of you may remember seeing the agribusiness one featuring Councillor Brennan's farm. But we are also releasing the remainder of those videos throughout this year. So agribusiness, manufacturing, tourism, small business remain the 4 key sectors of our economic growth in this community. And we continue to produce content to not only showcase that, but also attract new investment in those regards as well. Next, please. So we talked about some of the partnerships that we have, obviously regional in nature, and Ontario Food Cluster I've mentioned to you. So this is a group that has a very successful history of focused foreign direct investment and lead generation. We have been very pleased under our current chair situation to be able to appreciate some grant funding through Can Export. And in 2022, I'm very excited to tell you that we were able to have a successful funding application for not only just lead generation, but also travel and training for the membership. We produced through that a Foreign Direct Investment 101 training module that can now be used by economic development officers at all levels throughout the membership of the OFC. Membership in OFC is now 14 municipalities and growing. We've had new membership come on board this year, and I just had my most recent request from another municipality to join the organization just yesterday. 3 trade mission events were conducted, and they included the Food Technology Show in Chicago, Seattle, which is a huge food show in France this last year, and PLMA, which is a private label manufacturing alliance show, which is actually really popular among many of the businesses in our region, so showcasing, but also looking for new investment into the area. Total meetings completed last year were 77 by that group. The next group I'm going to talk to you about also engages in foreign direct investment. If I could have the next slide, please. Ontario Manufacturing Communities Alliance is also a group that focuses, however, their focus is not on agri-tech and agri-food. Their focus is on advanced manufacturing. Again, this is a collective of municipalities throughout Ontario working in this regard together. And this last year, they conducted 36 meetings and also had successful Can Export funding application for lead generation. So this funding comes from the federal level. This must be applied for either individually by municipalities or by collective groups to showcase the type of focused foreign direct investment they are trying to attract into the area. And so this group has also been a very respected one, and one that had garnered increasing attention by Can Export. That being said, next slide, please. We also do our own foreign direct investment with Middlesex County. And if you look at the comparative of the previous slide, we as well put together 33 of our own meetings with companies last year. We also had successful Can Export funding for lead generation, travel, and training. So this allows us the opportunity to look for investments outside of those that OMCA and OFC as regional groups are looking to attract, and focus in on the ones that are particular to Middlesex County, either to look for new investment or to look for partnering investment for the existing businesses in our communities. So lots of work takes place on this regard. The next slide, please. Going back to our existing companies, in the last year, we started producing a new series called Making It in Middlesex. This is stories of business success, and we launched this project at the end of 2022. Our first profile was Just-in-Time Solutions, a small business. We've also done a more recent feature on Synergy Composites, which is advanced manufacturing. We did a tourism feature on Custerman's Berry Farm, and we will be launching our agribusiness piece on Watermelons Plus in our community. So we do look to spread out throughout the community and look for different features. And if at any point you feel like there's a company in your regard that you would like to see a feature done on, please do not ever hesitate to contact me about that opportunity. Next slide, please. Middlesex Workforce Development Partnership. I said this is co-chaired by myself and Cindy Howard and has for some time. This is a great collective of employment service providers as well as stakeholders, including post-secondary institutions like Fanshawe College, but also our training board. We also have membership from both school boards, etc. We very happily acquired 2 OMAFRA Red grants over the course of 2022. One of those projects is ongoing, which is the one that Holly is currently coordinating for us, and I mentioned earlier. The other was really support for the partnership in total for all of the work they were looking to do this year, including promoting the Work in Middlesex brand, putting together training, workshops, etc. We also participated in a Level Up trades fair that took place in fall of 2022. And we're also a collective together with other employment service providers throughout the region called London and Area Works, which you may see features on CTV News and campaigns and a website purely designed for that. I also want to highlight on the next slide that we adopted some brand new GIS planning tools. They call it GIS planning. It's a little bit different than the GIS department that we have, but has some similarities in terms of the offerings and resources that we can provide, not only for ourselves and our own internal use, but the use of potential investors, also potential residents to our communities, as well as all of your local staff. So our website now has a new format for site selection, which includes all commercial, industrial, and residential listings available in real time. We have a partnership with our local real estate board in order to be able to house this on our website and allow that to be accessed in real time and specific only to Middlesex County communities. We also have new demographic displays. So when people are looking for information about population or breakdowns, all of that information is displayed on our site. Next slide, please. Also, I mentioned that our office works as the destination marketing organization for the region, and along with that comes some specific tourism sector advocacy. So we are a member of Tourism SkillNet Ontario, which is a workforce network that's looking at the opportunities for work in tourism and hospitality, which, as you know, there are many. We also have partnerships with regional tourism organizations. Our particular RTO is RTO1 for Southwestern Ontario. So we do a lot of work collectively with our partners in the area. We're also members of TIO and TIAC, which are the tourism industry associations for the province, as well as the federal government. Next one. So with this advocacy, often comes the opportunity for us to tap into certain resources that would otherwise not be available to us. And this past year, we were able to acquire $100,000 in extra federal funding to complete the following that allowed us to generate new content for a winter tourism commercial for tourism in our area that is yet to be launched. It'll be launched actually in 2023. We've been able to update our photography, and when we do that, we update that photography and keep it in a bank that is available to all businesses and all of your local municipalities to use. We also use some of these funds to do our tourism sector video, our Making a Middlesex Tourism Business Profile video specific to that. And if you go to the next slide, those investments continue to allow us to work with your local municipalities for the installation of some new bike racks that you'll see around your areas. We also we're able to allow for free signs to be circulated to businesses wishing to be identified on our grassroots signage program. We installed EV chargers in a few locations throughout your communities, again, with the help and partnership of your local staff. We did a heritage sign refresh. If you're not familiar with the Middlesex Heritage Sign Program, it's been in place for quite some time throughout all of your communities. And we were able through this fund to go out and refresh all of the signs and make them look nice again. We also partnered with a number of local organizations to do what we called Makeover Middlesex, which was a number of public art campaigns. And so you'll see those in your areas as well. Next slide. Another special program that we were able to put in place this last year was called the Spark program. This was something new for us. We were able to work together with Tourism Innovation Ontario, as well as our regional tourism office to do a virtual pitch of new tourism initiative ideas in Middlesex County. And we were able through this fund to be able to award 3 grant winners with a $3,000 seed grant from the Ontario Innovation Lab, as well as to work with them on mentorship over the course of the year. So we're still working alongside with all of these companies and organizations to facilitate the development of their ideas. And in fact, we're meeting with them this week. So the 3 award winners were Gyra Hills Family Homestead, which is located in Southwest Middlesex, Rusty Ranch Brewing Company, located in Strathroy Caradoc, and GF Farms, which is up in the north of the county. Next one, please. The county also has a tourism sponsorship program. This is our opportunity to partner directly with organizations, oftentimes individual businesses or your local municipalities to facilitate new projects. We awarded 12 sponsorships in 2022. We approved a total of 23,700 and change in funding with a total project value. Again, you look at return on investment, $197,000. So that money again is coming primarily from the private sector in terms of the work that they are doing. So now we'll move on to 2023 initiatives and just work through this quickly. First and foremost, one of the things we do at the first of every year is an Employer One survey. This is a collective regional effort that's done with the Elgin, Middlesex, Oxford Local Training Board. We had 65 very extensive surveys completed by Middlesex businesses in January. The results were just released in March, and we're currently working with the training board to extrapolate and understand specific to Middlesex County those needs and trends. So we're going to be able to have that information, I believe, later this month. The next slide, please. For those of you that participated, we were also very happy to work together with our provincial partners to have a CED 101 training for elected officials in February. So this was an education for a number of you in terms of what economic development looks like at the community level and what projects and supports are available. Next slide. We also have already this year revamped our business directory on the website. It is now a very user-friendly platform for investors and developers, which allows us to do sector mapping. We're able to go on and identify, for example, on a mapping and geography level, all of the accommodations, all of the agribusinesses, all of the shopping centers, that kind of thing throughout the county. So it's definitely a new tool that we're very happy to have as part of our website. Next slide. I've mentioned the Middlesex Workforce Development Partnership. Already in 2023, we've attended 3 career fairs. We've done outreach to numerous businesses, educational institutions, and community partners. We are just finishing a project where we are showcasing work integrated learning and cooperative education at businesses throughout Middlesex County. We've got an extensive campaign going on right now throughout the region on the Work in Middlesex brand. And we have a new provincial grant application that's been submitted for an extension of workforce development projects that I will be updating you on when we get word, and that is for 2024. Next slide. We are very excited to lead development of an International Women's Day project, and my thanks go out again to the warden for her collaboration on this. We are very excited to invite Jamie McMillan. She's the founder of Kick-Ass Careers, and she met with us right on site at the North Middlesex High School to discuss how young women can overcome the barriers of entering the trades. It was a fantastic interview, and we loved having her. She's very dynamic and has some very good words of wisdom. It really was a focus on embracing equity and the fair treatment and access for careers. And you can access the video on YouTube or on the Work in Middlesex site at any point. It's a wonderful learning tool. The next project we also were able to accomplish already this year is called Dress Your Downtown, and my thanks go to Strathroy Caradoc and North Middlesex for partnering with us. We were able to bring in some consultants from Your Town Rising and have a walkabout of Elsa Craig and Strathroy's downtowns and talk about opportunities for businesses and community stakeholders regarding streetscape and storefront enhancements. So exciting for us to be able to do that again in person. Next, we also have been conducting employer and business workshops. We conducted one called Influencing with an Impact that was very well received. And we did that in partnership with Fanshaw's Corporate Training Solutions and Community Employment Choices. County sponsorship of workshops will continue as well through 2023. Next slide. One of the new things that we were able to achieve alongside with the provincial money this year is the production of 4 succession planning training modules. So this is something that we really saw as a gap in the community. It's a gap actually in the province, and I would say even wider spread with respect to helping to educate existing business owners on the opportunities for succession planning. So we put this together again in partnership with Fanshawe Corporate Training Solutions, and all of that information, all of those modules are now available for any business to access on our Work in Middlesex and Invest sites. Next slide, please. One of the big things, and this, I don't want to minimize this. I mentioned earlier, we are consistently working with the local municipalities and our planning department to explore all opportunities to work together, as well with private landowners to properly inventory ready and market additional industrial land. This has certainly become even more at the precipice of things over the last little while with announcements such as the Volkswagen investment in St. Thomas. And I was thankful to be able to have a meeting with them yesterday. But these types of meetings and these types of opportunities are on our doorstep. We are already seeing the value add that is coming from that type of announcement. And so it's extremely important that we be able to work together. We had a meeting last week with representation from all local municipalities to discuss this. There has been a request made by the minister's office to inventory all available industrial lands, private or publicly owned. And my thanks to my colleague next to me for all of the work that we are doing and will continue to do among our departments to try to work with the local municipalities to see what we have available. Next. We do currently have a Young Entrepreneurs Contest running, so please feel free to advertise this in your communities. We have extended our contest this year to include elementary, secondary, but also post-secondary student offerings. And this is a streamlined online application as well as a video pitch component. We are looking for young people to bring forward their ideas of businesses that they would like to see implemented this year in Middlesex County. All of the groups will be awarded with some fun prizes, including a Chromebook. Next, Southern Ontario Tourism Conference and Awards. So again, as part of our work with groups like SWATC, I'm excited to tell you that if you didn't already know, Southwest Middlesex-based Gyra Hills Family Homestead was actually honored with the Sustainability Trailblazer of the Year Award for Southern Ontario at their tourism conference in March. So also, I'm excited to tell you that Lucan Biddulph-based Murals and Metal was selected to design and produce all of the awards for that conference this year. So we're excited to represent Middlesex there. We have a tourism symposium for the first time. We have not been able to gather as a group since 2019 due to the pandemic, but tomorrow it is taking place. So my thanks in advance to the warden for being there to bring remarks alongside our department. We have about 30 of our businesses coming out for that, which is going to be an engagement in some really exciting networking, but also best practice sharing and industry resources. I mentioned earlier our tourism initiative sponsorship. So that program is back in place for 2023. So sponsorship of new events and experiences cannot exceed 50% or 2,500 of the cash budget per project, but sponsorship is available now for returning annual events as well, not exceeding $1,000. All projects must be geared to the attraction of visitors from outside Middlesex County. Applications are open for this. They are going like hot cakes right now. We're seeing a lot of applications. If you have questions about the program, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at any point. But this is a real great opportunity for us to see that return on investment and creation of new events. We're also working on publication updates. We've updated our grassroots tourism maps just recently. So those are available for distribution now. We're working on the Middlesex County Trails Guide as well. And our culinary guide will also be updated later in 2023. Those are all very popular publications to come out of our office. Advertising campaigns is the next piece, just talking about a few of the places that you'll see us advertised, both on the invest side as well as visit. So keep an eye for those types of publications. The next slide deals with our business appreciation program. So this is something that's really important to all of our communities. We really want to take the opportunity to celebrate the investment that people are making in our communities. So we have a formalized program, which includes an application form that's available for anyone to fill out at any point on our website. That company, whether it's a new business opening up or whether it is a special occasion or anniversary, they will be identified and they will be acknowledged through way of an official certificate from the warden's office and myself, but also they will have the opportunity to be showcased with some other investments as well. There is a red carpet and a ribbon cutting scissors available as well. So if you have new businesses in your community that don't have access to those kind of things, they can contact our office. We're happy to add. Next, CIP partnership. I've mentioned that already. So the county is still investing in reimbursement of local municipal contributions for the development and implementation of CIPs. We're just working with Thames Centre this year on the development of a potential new CIP. And as I mentioned earlier, 6 other CIPs are in the implementation phase. Next slide. In terms of OMCA, I just identified the 5 shows that the OMCA membership will be attending this year. And again, they have been successful in their application for funding to support that. Next slide is the Ontario Food Cluster. So just identifying again that we're up to 14 new members. Niagara is the most recent to join. We have been successful in our acquisition of some dollars again, and the 3 shows that that group will be attending is identified. Middlesex County FDI is next. So again, outlining our strategic plan in terms of FDI. So the shows we'll be attending is noted there, as well as the fact that we also have been successful again this year in acquiring grant funding for this purpose. The last, or the next piece is just business visitation. So locally, I've mentioned already, we're already working with your local municipalities. If you have staff in place, we're taking information from our new business directory. We're also conducting in-person business visit interviews. We've produced those interview questions so that there's going to be some consistency across the board. I'm also excited to tell you that we are going to be putting on a manufacturing FAM tour this year. So again, now that we can gather in person, we have plans in the works and we're going to be doing some pop-up tours or a bus tour. And we will likely be launching that very soon. So keep an eye on your emails we look forward to seeing you on site at some of those businesses that you may not know are in your community or may not have ever had the opportunity to get behind the doors of. Just wrapping things up here from our hands to your table. I've mentioned earlier, this is our relationship between the agri-food producers in our area as well as our culinary tourism providers. This is a partnership that we do together with Lambton County. And you can find that information on Hands to Table. It's a selected website. This year, we're going to be featuring our Arva Flour Mill, Arva Grain, and Arva Millhouse Bakery. We are also putting a new customer relationship management system in place in our department, which is going to allow us access to information on really every conversation we have with businesses at any point. This is also going to be of great use to your lower tiers. So we're just migrating that platform, and we expect over the next 3 months, we're going to get everybody using that internally. Again, just the final slide here, please. There's a lot that goes on in economic development and tourism in our county, and we always invite you to ask questions, but you can also follow us alongside or check out the websites at any point. But we're always here to work with you, and we're always here to answer your questions. Thanks for all of your partnership.
Hey, thank you very much for that, Kara. Certainly lots happening in your department, as you have highlighted. Comments for Kara at this time. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Kara, for that presentation. That was very well done. I'd like to take the opportunity to also congratulate you on your success in 2022 with your grant applications. You were very successful in that area. I'm jumping a little bit ahead on the agenda, but I think it's more appropriate to ask the question now. I noticed in the payables for last month, there was over $60,000 spent in research consulting fees. And I just wondered if you would like to speak to that now as it relates to your presentation and just tell us about that, and if it's information that's shared with other departments within the county and or available for the lower tier municipalities.
Sure. So consultation dollars are generally, there are some dollars that get put up front, the majority of which would be for the FDI work that was taking place in the department. So we do have contracts that go out for quotation at the first of the year, dependent on the Can Export funding. So in those cases, we will be reimbursed for 50% of those costs. And so those costs go out at the first of the year, and that allows us to be able to engage those consultants to be able to set all of our meetings for us. So they recommend the trade missions that we go on based on the strategy that we have laid out. And then they would also set all of those meetings. So anytime we go to a trade show, we're going there not to have a booth, not to engage in general conversation. We are going there with a set agenda and schedule of companies that we are meeting for in order to recruit back to Middlesex County. So if you're seeing consultation fees, is generally for that purpose.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments for Kara at this time? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Kara. And we look forward to the successes that I'm sure are going to come from all the hard work that your department puts in. If I could ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information, please. Councillor Clark and Councillor Smybert. All in favor? And that's carried. We are going to defer Wayne's report until May 23rd. So if I can get a mover and a seconder to defer that report, Councillor McGuire and Councillor Grantham. All in favor? And that's carried. And Bettina and Chris, I think, are going to give us a update and presentation on our Middlesex County Emergency Management Program. Very fitting for Emergency Preparedness Week and for our recognition of our SERVE volunteers. So Bettina.
Thank you very much. So just a brief update of what's been going on. Is it not showing?
Well, they're going to turn the slides.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, it's like I've never done this before. So myself and the municipal and county emergency management program committees are responsible for implementing, developing, and maintaining proactive emergency management programs. I visit the municipalities 3 times a year for that purpose. And that seems to be a good number. Everyone seems happy with that. And all of our programs are geared towards the prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery from major emergencies that could have disastrous impacts on our communities. Next slide, please. So some of the responsibilities of myself and also of those members of the committees. Development and implementation of emergency response plans for the county and the municipalities, and the maintenance of the emergency management program to meet provincial regulations and requirements. And I'm very happy to say that it was just last week we all received the letters of compliance from Emergency Management Ontario that all of our municipalities and the county are compliant for another year. So that's nice, for last year. We also develop supporting plans for the dissemination of emergency information, which is becoming more and more important. People demand information instantly now in emergencies. And one of the ways we do that is to use Ontario's 211 telephone information system. We develop and implement public education programs for residents and school children. And something I had started to do before the pandemic was a series of talks for seniors across the county through VON. And I'm hoping that maybe that could come back again. That was a really well-received program. The development and implementation of an annual emergency management exercise. And of course, we just finished one on cyber attack, which led to a lot of new developments in terms of making the county's IT system safer. And we know that even though these are practice events, they are very important in helping us realize what extra things could happen in any kind of emergency situation. And finally, of course, training and support of the SERVE team. And programs that we offer to staff, volunteers, and elected officials across the county, the basic emergency management workshop through EMO. If you only need to take one emergency management course, that's the one to take. It is a 2-day workshop, and it does give you all the basics you need to know on how municipal staff should be responding to major emergencies. EOC Scribe workshop, how to keep records during such events. Registration and inquiry workshops, which is primarily for the SERVE volunteers and for the library staff. The intake function and the crib and supervisors workshop, which is an advanced program. Reception center operations, mostly taken again by SERVE volunteers, but also facilities managers across the county. Nonviolent physical crisis intervention, which includes verbal de-escalation and personal safety skills. Unfortunately, this is becoming more and more important for any staff who work with the public at all. How to deal with an irate customer may not just be an irate customer anymore. It can escalate into something far more serious. And this program helps us to meet our requirements under Bill 168 for violence in the workplace training. And 1-hour emergency preparedness workshops for businesses, service clubs, seniors, faith groups, whoever wants to hear it can just call me up and I will go out and provide that presentation. Next, please. The grade 7 program, the 72 hours is your family prepared. We've been doing it for a long time now. I want to say 16, 17 years. All students attend a 50-minute workshop, and these are the grade 7 students across the county. And they take home some brochures and information to share with their families. Prior to COVID, more than 2,000 children every year participated in this educational program. And we may still be the only county that has this type of ongoing emergency awareness for young people. John Elston has informed me, though, that there may be roadblocks now that COVID is over. It's a little harder to get into the schools than it used to be. So we'll see how it goes. Next, please. We have 3 emergency support units, our 14-foot trailers. Each one contains 100 cots, 100 blankets, pillows, office supplies, first aid kits, recreation supplies, forms, signs, everything you need to set up a reception center at a moment's notice. These vehicles are stored indoors, one in Lucan, one in Glencoe, one in Thorndale. They're a county resource. Any municipality who's experiencing an emergency can request this through the CEMC or alternate or county engineer. And we will be showing one off at the City of London's open house on Saturday at the Byron Fire Hall. So if you and your family are at loose ends and are looking for something exciting to do, you can visit the City of London's. There's going to be other people there too, but I know our trailer will be the thing that you'll want to see most. So we encourage you to go. And as always, of course, our SERV volunteers will be there to answer questions and give out brochures and provide that smiling face and assist at promoting emergency preparedness in our county. Next, please. And SERV Middlesex, there they are. Their participation in particular during the COVID vaccination clinics was stellar. The health unit staff praised them. The residents praised them. I've heard nothing but good things from staff and elected officials. How lucky, after doing years of waiting for something to happen. Well, it did happen. And that's why we train. That's why we keep them active. That's why we try to have something new for them every year. So they get an awful lot of training. We like to say that our volunteers are as well trained as Canadian Red Cross or Salvation Army volunteers, and they're all ours, so that in a major emergency, when one of those organizations may be stretched to the breaking point because everybody wants Salvation Army volunteers, SERV volunteers live here, they know our area, they know their neighbors, and they have a vested interest in helping the citizens of our county. Next, please. We do have 2 MOUs. Memorandums of understanding exist already between the county and the Salvation Army. And in a major emergency, the Salvation Army will provide emergency food services, which is a logistical nightmare to actually feed people with all the licenses and training and so on that you need to do that safely. So we're glad they're doing that. Emergency clothing supplies, emotional and spiritual support of any kind needed, and any other emergency assistance as required, like donations management or anything you ask them to do, they can do for us. And they do this on a fee-for-service basis. So we would get a bill after it's all over and only for direct expenses, actual food, gas, equipment. There is no fee for their time, and they've been extremely helpful. And I hope that our relationship continues in this way. Same thing with victim services. This is a newer agreement. Victim services will be providing very much emotional support, but also references to tangible support that victims of an emergency could access through that agency. And we'll have a similar structure with them, only paying for fee for service in the end. Next, please. I invite if you have any questions or comments on our program.
Okay, thank you very much for that review and update. Bettina, Chris, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warren. Just a couple of closing comments. Three things actually. So one, I just wanted to say, this program, our emergency management program in Middlesex County, it predates my time here with Middlesex. This is something that we're proud to provide a coordinated effort across all of our local municipalities in the county. The county is really a support for all of our local municipal emergency preparedness actions. And we really have a unique delivery of this service in Middlesex County. We have a coordinated type of emergency preparedness plan across all of our municipal boundaries. So we almost have a seamless response in case of an emergency. Very rarely does something happen that affects only a very isolated location or one municipality. And really, we've created a program where through Bettina and all of our alternate CMCs that live and work in your communities, can very easily integrate with our neighbors in order to provide a coordinated emergency response in case of a disaster. So I think that, Bettina and all of our alternate CMCs should really be commended for the work that they do on behalf of our citizens and really at a very efficient way of delivering this service. People don't like when these bad things happen, but in Middlesex County, I can tell you we're prepared for pretty much anything. Like I say, of cyber attacks to tornadoes, to the pandemic. We're really there and ready. And I think our response is second to none. And then secondly, just again, I can't share my gratitude enough about our SERV team. And I just wanted to say, because there are some people listening at home, if you're interested in being a SERV volunteer and you're a resident of Middlesex County, please go to our website. We are always looking for new members for our team. We're actively recruiting. And if it's not available today, in very short order, there'll be a recruiting application you can fill out, and we're always welcoming new members to our team. It's a very valuable and rewarding experience. You can certainly make a difference in your community. So I just wanted to put that out there as well, in case anyone is watching at home and are interested in becoming a member of our SERV team. It will be time well spent, and it's very rewarding volunteer opportunity. So thanks, Madam Warren.
Thank you for that, Chris, and thank you for that plug. Okay. Comments for Bettina on the emergency management program that we run? Nope, we're all familiar with it, and we've all experienced it at different levels. So thanks again, Bettina, not only for today, but also for the work that you do with the SERV team, and glad that we were finally able to get them here for the recognition. It's been a long time coming, so appreciate you being able to coordinate all that today. With that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that update for information, please. Councillor Robb and Councillor DeVitt. All in favor? And that's carried. On to action items. We do have some correspondence that we've received from the organization Women of Ontario Say No, and it is the request for a motion of support for Bill 5, which is the Stopping Harassment and Abuse of Local Leaders Act. Just some background on that. You've got corresponding or correspondence that's been received in support of that request, but certainly at a number of local other counties have endorsed this. I know Wowsy is looking at it. I believe members of SCORE are looking at it. This is a bill that has made it to second reading and was pulled, didn't make it to third reading because of the election, and it's being not pushed through, but it's being, put on the floor again, and obviously looking for support from our municipalities in that. If I'm going to speak personally, I think that this is something worthwhile, given we are a table of equity, and Middlesex County has been a leader when it has come to women in leadership and the voice that we have. So with that, I would open it up for discussion on the recommended motion in front of you. Councillor Mayhew. Your mic on.
Yes, it may be early, Madam Warren, but I'll certainly move that recommendation when the time comes.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? With that, Counselor Mayhew has moved it. Can I get a seconder for that? Counselor Smybert? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Dirk is up with Thames Center Official Plan Amendment. Again, this is the familiar housekeeping amendment.
Yes, I'll be very quick. We talked earlier about the next round of provincial changes. We're just implementing the stuff from December, and this is one of the last ones. So this is, as you know, from previous reports, the province gave local municipalities some additional authority. You have to amend your official plan in order for that to be in place. I have reviewed all the material and I am recommending approval.
Thank you for that, Dirk. Questions on this or comments? With that, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion in front of you. Councillor Clark and Councillor DeVeet. All in favor? Carried. On to correspondence and information items. We've got a list of payables in front of us. I'm not going to read all the payables, but is there any that council wanted to be pulled for discussion or clarification? Okay, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to accept those items for information. Councillor Grantham and a seconder, Councillor McGuire. All in favor? Carried. On to our correspondence. The first one, Middlesex County Drag Time Story Time Programs. I'm going to pull that and speak to it. Where's Lindsay? I want to congratulate Lindsay and her team, her whole team really, for the program, for the correspondence, for keeping council up to date. I also want to speak directly to the staff at the North Middlesex branch. It was a success in many ways, but there's no question that there were some blocks that were put in your way. And Lindsay, you have handled it with confidence and grace, and you need to be congratulated on that. And the team at the North Middlesex Library needs to be congratulated as well. We certainly look forward to supporting this important, inclusive, and accepting programming in Kamoka and in Strathroy. And certainly I would encourage our counselors, if your calendar allows you to go and support the story time program, but probably more importantly, to support our staff. So I didn't know if there was any other comments on that item of correspondence. Okay, moving on. We have a letter from Enbridge Gas dated May 2nd, 2023. Letter from the Middlesex Clean Water Program from Upper Thames for April 2023. Road closures report from engineering. Board of Health update for April. ITS parables for March 31st to April 27th, totaling $252,192.91. A news release from Good Roads announcing its board of directors. Councillor DeVeet.
And I'll say thank you to Councillor Smybert for putting your name forward and being on the board.
I think that one.
Oh, sorry, Kathy, you. Wrong one. I'm looking at you. And Michelle's volunteering for sorry, I misspoke. I'm looking.
No problem there. Then a thank you card from the family of Duncan McPhail. A letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing dated April 6th. A Middlesex London Health Unit monitoring food affordability and implications for public policy and action. Upper Thames River Watershed Report card summary for 2023. Drinking water source protection roles and responsibilities. I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive those items for information, please. Councillor McGuire and Councillor Clark. All in favor? And that's great. Okay, so we do have to move into closed session. I was going to suggest maybe a 5-minute break. Should we do that before or move into closed? Why don't we take a 5-minute recess, and then those in the audience can leave, and then we'll do the motion to go in camera. I just need a motion for a recess. Councillor McGuire and Councillor Grantham, all in favor. We'll see you in 5 minutes.